Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Monday, November 23rd, 2020. Today I'm going to recap the weekend's games in the NFL and college football, respectively, and obviously look ahead to tonight's Monday Night Football game between the Bucs and the Rams, the latest NBA free agency moves from the weekend, my podcast plans for the week, and my best bet of the day. All right, we'll start with the NFL. An interesting day in the National Football League for sure yesterday. We're going to go over all the results and look ahead to tonight's game. Browns over the Eagles 22-17. The Browns are 7-3. The Eagles are 3-6-1. And amazingly, still a half game up on its divisional opponents for first place in the division. Carson Wentz, 21 of 35, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Baker Mayfield, 12 of 22, 204 yards. Saints over the Falcons, 24-9. So Taysom Hill wins his first career start. The Saints improved to 8-2. Atlanta drops to 3-7. Taysom Hill, 18 of 23, 233 yards, and 10 carries for 51 yards and 2 touchdowns. Matt Ryan, 19 of 37, 232 yards, and 2 interceptions. The Washington football team defeats the Bengals 20-9. Washington 3-7, Cincinnati 2-7-1. Alex Smith, 17 of 25, 166 yards, a touchdown, the pick. Joe Burrow, 22 of 34, 203 yards, and a touchdown. Unfortunately, Joe Burrow tore his ACL in the game, so he's out for the season. It's just a bummer for the Bengals and their fans. And then Ryan Finley came in, 3 of 10, 30 yards and an interception. Panthers over the Lions 20-0. They did it without Teddy Bridgewater as they go to 4-7. Detroit's 4-6. PJ Walker, 24-34, 258 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks. Matthew Stafford, 18 of 33, 178 yards. That's just a terrible loss for the Detroit Lions. Steelers over the Jaguars 27-3. Pittsburgh's 10-0. Jacksonville's 1-9. Ben Roethlisberger 32 of 46, 267 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Jake Luton 16 of 37, 151 yards and 4 interceptions. If the Jaguars are to win a game for the rest of the season, they really need Gardner Minshew, and if they want to tank for Trevor, to keep going with Jake Luton. Titans over the Ravens 30-24 in overtime, courtesy of a game-winning 29-yard run by Derrick Henry. Titans go to 7-3. Baltimore drops to 6-4. Ryan Tannehill 22 of 31, 259 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Lamar Jackson 17 of 29, 189 yards, a touchdown and a pick. And on the ground, Jackson 13 carries for 51 yards. Texans over the Patriots, 27-20. Texans 3-7. New England 4-6. Deshaun Watson, 28 of 37, 344 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was wonderful. Cam Newton, 26 of 40, 365 yards and a touchdown. 4 o'clock window. Broncos over the Dolphins, 20-13. Classic trap game. Denver wins. Drew Lock played. They're 4-6. Miami 6-4. Drew Lock, 18 of 30, 270 yards and a pick. Ryan Fitzpatrick came in for Tua because Tua was just playing flat out poorly. Fitzpatrick, 12 of 18, 117 yards and a pick. Tua, 11 of 20, 83 yards and a touchdown. The Chargers defeated the Jets 34-28. This was a wacky game. Chargers 3-7, Jets 0-10. Justin Herbert 37 of 49, 366 yards, 3 touchdowns. Joe Flacco 15 of 30, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. So the Jets have their best offensive game of the year and still lose. Colts over the Packers 34-31 in overtime. Indy 7-3, Green Bay 7-3, Phillip Rivers 24-36, 288 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Aaron Rodgers 27-38, 311 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. And good job on Indianapolis coming back from multiple double-digit deficits to win this game. That's what they've been doing pretty much all season long, coming back from big deficits to win these games. And Green Bay, they played well, but Marquez Valdez-Scantling fumbled in overtime, and that cost him the game. Cowboys upset the Vikings 31-28. Cowboys 3-7. Vikings 4-6. As the Cowboys are right back in the NFC East race. Andy Dalton 22-32, 203 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Kirk Cousins 22-3, 314 yards and 3 touchdowns. So Dallas gets the big win to keep themselves in the division race. Now all the pressure in the world is on them on Thanksgiving to go out and win. And the Chiefs over the Raiders 35-31. The Chiefs are 9-1. The Raiders are 6-4. Patrick Mahomes 34 of 35, 348 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Derek Carr 23 of 31, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception. And now we turn our attention to Monday Night Football between the Rams and the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers on FanDuel are favored in this matchup by 4.5 points. The total's 48.5. I project the Bucks by 4.5. Total 47.5. So by default, I have to go with the under. I don't like the play at all, and I'm gonna be just sitting here holding my nose and hoping it comes through. So give me the under 47.5. I hate the pick. I'm picking the Bucks to win the game. They're just better than the Rams. So give me the Bucks to win, but the podcast play under 48.5 as I have a slim edge on the under for this game. Now we'll move on to college football. That was an interesting weekend as well. We will start Friday night. You had 4 games, my bad. Louisville over Syracuse 30-0. Louisville 3-6, Syracuse 1-8. Minnesota over Purdue 34-31. It was a fun game. Minnesota's 2-3, Purdue's 2-2. FAU over UMass 24-2. FAU 5-1, UMass 0-3. Air Force over New Mexico 28-0. Air Force 2-2, New Mexico 0-4. Saturday, number 3 Ohio State over number 9 Indiana 42-35. Indiana comes back and makes that game interesting to cover. Ohio State's 4-0, Indiana's 4-1. Number 6 Florida over Vanderbilt 38-17. Florida 6-1, Vandy 0-7. Number 15 Coastal Carolina over Appalachian State 34-23. One of the bad beats of the weekend, as Coastal gets the late pick 6 to ice it. They're 8-0. App State 6-2. Memphis over Stephen F. Austin 56-14. Memphis 5-2. Stephen F. Austin 6-4. Illinois over Nebraska 41-23. Illinois 2-3. Nebraska 1-3. Texas State over Arkansas State 47-45. Texas State 2-9. Arkansas State 3-6. East Carolina over Temple 28-3. East Carolina 2-6. Temple 1-6. Army over Georgia Southern 28-27. Army 7-2. Georgia Southern 6-3. LSU over Arkansas 27-24. LSU 3-3. Arkansas 3-5. Western Kentucky over Florida International 38-21. Western Kentucky 4-6. Florida International 0-5. North Texas over Rice 27-17. Rice UNT 3-3. Rice is 1-2. Number 8 BYU over North Alabama 66-14. BYU 9-0. North Alabama 0-4. UTSA over Southern Miss 23-20. UTSA 6-4. Southern Miss 2-7. Number 7 Cincinnati over UCF 36-33. Cincinnati 8-0. UCF 5-3. Number 19 Northwestern over number 10 Wisconsin 17-7. Northwestern 5-0. Wisconsin 2-1. Number 11 Oregon over UCLA 38-35. Oregon 3-0. UCLA 2-2 or 1-2. Georgia State over South Alabama 31-14. Georgia State 4-4. USA 3-6. Middle Tennessee upsets Troy 20-17. Middle Tennessee 3-6. Troy 4-4. Iowa over Penn State 41-21. Iowa 3-2. Penn State 0-5. Nevada over San Diego State 26-21. Nevada 5-0. San Diego State 3-2. Oregon State over Cal 31-27. Oregon State 1-2. Cal 0-2. Number 1 Alabama over Kentucky 63-3. Alabama 7-0. Kentucky 3-5. Number 17 Iowa State over Kansas State 45-0. Kansas State 6-2. Iowa State 6-2. Kansas State 4-4. Virginia over Abilene Christian 55-15. Virginia 4-4. Abilene Christian 1-5. Pitt over Virginia Tech 47-14. Pitt 5-4. Virginia Tech 4-5. Number 23 Auburn over Tennessee 30-17. Auburn 5-2. Tennessee 2-5. Number 13 Georgia over Mississippi State 31-24. Georgia 5-2. Mississippi State 2-5. Number 18 Oklahoma over number 14 Oklahoma State 41-13. Oklahoma 6-2. Oklahoma State 5-2. NC State over Liberty 15-14. Liberty misses the game-winning field goal. NC State 6-3. Liberty gets their first loss. They're 8-1. Missouri over South Carolina 17-10. Missouri 3-3. South Carolina 2-6. Michigan over Rutgers 48-42 in triple overtime. Michigan's 2-3. Rutgers 1-4. Washington over Arizona 44-27. Washington 2-0. Arizona 0-2. Number 20 USC over Utah 33-17. USC 3-0. Utah 0-1. Boise State over Hawaii 40-32. Boise 4-1. Hawaii 2-3. Clemson Florida State postponed. Michigan Maryland canceled. Wake Duke canceled. Houston SMU postponed. Charlotte Marshall postponed. Central Arkansas Louisiana canceled. Ole Miss A&M postponed. Texas Kansas postponed. Yale Monroe Louisiana Tech canceled. Yale Navi Colorado State canceled. San Jose State Fresno State canceled. Georgia Tech Miami postponed. Navy USF postponed. Arizona State Colorado canceled. And Washington State Stanford was canceled. Alrighty. Now I'm going to talk about NBA free agency from the weekend. We are going to start from Saturday, as the last thing we talked about on the podcast in terms of free agency was the Steven Adams trade and how that was finally finalized. The Thunder got George Hill, Darius Miller, 2023 Denver protected first, and a second-round pick in 2023 via Charlotte and 2024 via Washington. And Eric Bledsoe stays with the Pelicans in that deal. All right, so Mo Harkless, 1 year, $3.6 million for the Miami Heat. That's obviously a veteran that can help them in a bench role. In that Jay Crowder spot. I like Jay Crowder better than Mo Harkless, but Mo Harkless isn't bad. Chris Dunn, 2 year, $10 million with the Hawks. Dunn, obviously, somebody bounced around. He was on the Timberwolves, didn't work out, and he was on the Bulls. He was in that Jimmy Butler deal, didn't work out for him. Maybe a change of scenery. Third time's a charm can work out for him. DJ Augustine, 3 years, $21 million with the Bucks. So that's obviously backup point guard spot after they trade away George Hill and Eric Bledsoe. And then in the Holiday deal, so they have Holiday and then Augustine backing up. Augustine's not a bad backup point guard. He was in Orlando for a long time and starting for them a lot. And he was on Indiana before that. He bounced around a little bit, so Augustine gets a nice deal with the Bucks. I don't love that contract, but he's someone that can help the Bucks off the bench. And one of the big ones from Saturday, Gordon Hayward, 4 years, $120 million with the Charlotte Hornets. That's an interesting signing. They needed some help on the wing, so now that team gets a little deeper. He's now reunited with Terry Rozier unless they trade him. So they have LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Devontae Graham, Gordon Hayward, Miles Bridges as a fivesome on that team. Obviously, probably Rozier would, in theory, come off the bench. And then the big man for Charlotte is pretty much, Bismack Biyombo, who's really not that good. And then you have P.J. Washington there. I guess he'll be their starting center. And he's not bad. And he's more of a power forward than a center. And then Marvin Williams, if I'm not mistaken, is still at the Hornets too. So I guess P.J. Washington would be their starting center. And then you have Bridges at small forward or power forward, Hayward at the 3. And then you have LaMelo at point guard and then Graham at the 2. So that's not a terrible, terrible starting 5, I guess. And the funny thing is that Hayward signed an offer sheet with Charlotte in 2014, but Utah matched and kept him. And now this time Charlotte lands him. So the Hornets, in order to create the cap space, waived Nick Batum, who had a terrible contract. Gary Clark, 2-year, $4.1 to stay with the Magic. Good role player for them. Pat Connaughton, 2 years, $8.3 to return to the Bucks. Connaughton, obviously, backup guard for them. It comes off the bench. Jalen Adams, 2-way deal with the Bucks. So the Bucks adding some depth here. Rajon Rondo, 2 years, $15 million with the Hawks. So the Hawks pick up a veteran guy that can help them. Obviously, Rondo could either start or come off the bench in this role with the Hawks. He's probably going to come off the bench and be a mentor for Trae Young. Hopefully, Trae Young learns some defense from Rajon Rondo. Because Rajon Rondo is still a really good defensive player at this point in his career, and hopefully he helps these young kids. And then, like Woj points out, they look to get better defensively in their backcourt. So Rondo and Chris Dunn, who are 2 good defensive guards, and obviously Trae Young, who is a defense-free guard and an all-offense guard. Elfrid Payton, 1 year, $5 million to go back to the New York Knicks. Maybe Payton could be a trade asset that they can flip. They failed to flip him last year, so maybe they can flip him this year. So Torrey Craig is now an unrestricted free agent, but the Nuggets ran out of roster spots for him, so Torrey Craig now an unrestricted free agent. Brad Wanamaker, 1 year, $2.25 for Golden State. So he'll be their backup guard that come off the bench. Nerlens Noel, 1 year, $5 million with the Knicks. Maybe he's their backup center and plays well defensively, and maybe he gets shopped somewhere. So that's what the Knicks are clearly doing, what they did last year. It worked out for them because they got a first-round pick for Marcus Morris. I don't know if they'll get a first for, say, Noel, but you never know. Who would have thought they got a first-round pick for Marcus Morris? And then, obviously, Marcus Morris played so well that he not only fetched the Knicks first-round pick, he landed that huge contract with the Clippers. Javon Carter, 3 year, $11.5 million to stay with the Suns, so he'll be a bench guard for the Phoenix Suns, the former West Virginia Mountaineer guard. And one of the big ones, 2 years, $19 million, Serge Ibaka 2, the Los Angeles Clippers. Great signing for the Clippers. They needed bigs. And now Serge goes to a good team in LA with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. You got Marcus Morris there. You got Patrick Beverley. Landry Shamit's gone. Lou Williams is still there. So the Clippers, as of right now, still have a good roster. I still think there's still moves to be made left for them. Because 2 years, 19 for Serge Ibaka is really good at this point in his career. So Ibaka obviously ring hunting. And he's going to be their starting center for them. And then it's going to be Kawhi, Paul George, Patrick Beverley, and I guess Marcus Morris will be the rest of their starting five, unless if Morris is their sixth man. And then player option for year 2 for Serge, by the way. Marc Gasol. This was a big one. He goes to the Los Angeles Lakers on a 3-year deal. Huge signing for the Lakers. He'll probably be their starting center, replacing Dwight Howard, and then JaVale McGee they dumped onto the Cleveland Cavaliers. So Marc Gasol to the Lakers. So now their starting five is going to be Dennis Schroeder, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Marc Gasol, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. That's lethal. And then Montrezl Harrell off the bench, which is crazy that the defending champions just got better. And they should be the favorites to repeat because they really gave a crap about the offseason. Because you normally don't see that from reigning champions all the time. And I think this is the first time you see a reigning champion go out and make themselves better in a long time. And don't forget, when Golden State signed Kevin Durant, they signed him after blowing the 3-1 lead against the Cavaliers. Bryn Forbes, 2-year deal with the Bucks. So Forbes gives the Bucks more depth at the guard position. Harry Giles, 1-year deal with the Blazers, gives them depth up front. Maybe he takes advantage of a change of scenery. And a rookie extension. Donovan Mitchell, 5 years, $195 million, well-deserved, for one of the best young point guards in the game. He's just getting better and better and better every year. So you knew this was all coming. And Torrey Craig actually goes to the Bucks. So the Bucks get more forward depth. So the Bucks really made themselves deep. Theo Pinson, 2-way contract with the Knicks. Quindary Witherspoon, 2-way contract to go back to the Spurs. Damian Jones, 2-year deal with the Suns. Jonte Porter, 3 years, $6 million to stay with the Grizzlies. And then a trade, Zaire Smith from Philly to Detroit for center Tony Bradley. Maybe Zaire Smith benefits from a change of scenery. And then another rookie extension, Jason Tatum, 5 years, $195 million with the Celtics. Tatum's just an absolute superstar, best player from the 2017 draft. He really is the next great Boston Celtics player that they have that's homegrown. So that's huge that the Celtics got that done. And next up, Bam Adebayo for that big extension. And then Austin Rivers, 3 years, $10 million with the Knicks. Not a terrible signing. He can either start for them or come off the bench. I think that's a tradable contract, 3 years, $10 million. If he plays super duper well for them, then they can get a lot for him because it's a multi-year contract. Pacers trade TJ Leaf and the future second-round pick to Oklahoma City for Jalen Lecque. So maybe TJ Leaf benefits from a change of scenery in Oklahoma City. Minnesota trades Omari Spellman and Jacob Evans and a future second-round pick to New York for Ed Davis. Obviously, Ed Davis was traded to the Knicks as a salary dump with 2 second-round picks from the Jazz. So the Jazz can clear up the money to extend Donovan Mitchell. So New York gets two nice, young, promising players that could benefit from change of scenery, and Jacob Evans and Spellman played well last year at times. And Spellman, I think, could really help the Knicks. Obviously, he was on Golden State last year, and then Golden State sent him to Minnesota, I believe in the D'Angelo Russell deal. I believe he was a throw-in the D'Angelo Russell trade, and now he's acquired by the New York Knicks for Ed Davis. I think that's a great trade for New York, and I think an okay trade for the Timberwolves. He's just a veteran that can help them. But yeah, good job on the Knicks taking on 2 second-round picks for Ed Davis and then getting 2 more second-round picks back for Ed Davis. The Timberwolves must have been really desperate for Ed Davis. So we talked about JaVale McGee going from the Lakers to Cleveland, so Cleveland takes on the bad contract, and McGee probably is just going to be a bench player for them. So the Lakers send the future second-round pick to the Cavaliers. There's talks that McGee was going to get dumped on the Knicks, but I think the Knicks probably wanted more than a second-round pick. And then we talk about Marc Gasol signing with the Lakers, how big that is. It's actually a 2-year deal, not a 3-year deal. And then Cleveland trades Jordan Bell and Alfonso McKinney to the Lakers in the Gasol deal. So Bell's somebody that can help him off the bench. Wow. I think the Lakers probably have had the best offseason thus far. And they didn't even re-sign Anthony Davis yet, which is the crazy part. And then McKinney can help them too. So they get some depth there. But the Lakers can waive those guys to open up more money. But those guys aren't bad. All right, Chris Boucher, 2-year, $13.5 to stay with the Raptors. So they get a depth piece there. So that's really it. Been on the free agency part. Obviously, the Raptors, I think, are the big losers. They lose their 2 big guys. Do they go in rebuild mode and trade Kyle Lowry? But the good news is that they re-signed Fred VanVleet to a 4-year, $85 million contract. So at least they keep another young asset so they can build around him and build around Pascal Siakam. And like I said, do they trade Kyle Lowry? I think that's the big question. Or do they keep him and maybe they go out and get a big man and go for another run at it in the Eastern Conference? I think Philly's had a nice free agency offseason. There's a lot of talk that they could be the team that goes out and trade for James Harden. Brooklyn was the hot rumor for a while. Now it's over to Philly in terms of James Harden. And Brooklyn's team's very deep. The Celtics, disappointing. They lose Gordon Hayward, although they do. They signed Tristan Thompson to a 1-year deal. I think that's a good signing for Boston. They needed a big man. Tristan Thompson's still good. Nobody really likes him because he has that reputation because he dated a Kardashian. I get it, but he's a fine basketball player. I think that Boston is a good situation for him. He can play a little defense, and he's somebody that can play crunch time for them, and then they obviously dumped Dennis Kanter. So yeah, the Tristan Thompson signing was pretty good. So disappointing that they let go of Hayward and didn't get anything back for him. But Tristan Thompson fills their hole at center. So now you're looking at a lineup of Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. We don't know who at power forward. Maybe Robert Williams, and then Tristan Thompson at center, which isn't a disaster. And then the Knicks signed a bunch of veterans to short-term deals. Well, Rivers is 3 years, $10 million. But they're trying to do what they did last year by trade away some guys. But the guys they signed this year are much, much better than the guys they signed last year. And they had a better... I don't want to even... I mean, in terms of a draft, they had a great draft. They had a nice draft last year. I like R.J. Barrett. I think he's going to be a good player. But They got really, really lucky with Obi Toppin falling to them. So I think they've had a good offseason thus far. Detroit is just signing a bunch of weirdo players, a lot of centers. The Kyrie Thomas thing, we'll see how that pans out. Cleveland takes on the bad JaVale McGee contract. Chicago's been quiet. Indiana strikes out on Gordon Hayward. That's so disappointing for Indiana. The Bucks, I think, have had a great offseason despite failing to pull off the Bogdanovich thing because they violated rules. The Hawks are the team that filed an offer sheet for Bogdanovich. So if they land him, oh my goodness, boy, do they have a lot of assets to go out and possibly trade for a star. Oh my goodness. I don't think it's going to be James Harden because that would just be a weird backcourt of James Harden and Trae Young. If anything, they're probably going to go out and trade for a wing or a stretch four or something like that. But yeah, we'll see if Sacramento matches or they sign and trade him to the Hawks. So if they pull off Bogdanovich, Trae Young, Bogdanovich, Danilo Gallinari, and John Collins as 4 of your 5 pieces in your starting lineup. Maybe throw DeAndre Hunter in there. Collins can start at the 5, Gallo at the 4, DeAndre Hunter at the 3, Bogdanovich at the 2 guard, and Trae Young, or Bogdanovich off the bench and start Kevin Huerter. But yeah, wow. They really did themselves a favor. So the Hawks, we'll see if they pull off this Bogdanovich thing. Miami's been quiet, although they re-signed Dragic. They bring in Mo Harkless in that Drake Crowder spot. Orlando didn't really do anything dumb yet. Charlotte signs Gordon Hayward. We talked about that. Washington brings back Davies Bertans, which I'm surprised by, but there's bird rights. So they were able to offer him a 5-year deal. Over to the West, I mentioned before, I think the Lakers have had the best offseason. The Clippers' response is Serge Ibaka, which isn't a disaster. I think the Clippers have a couple other moves up their sleeve. Golden State's had a nice offseason despite losing Klay Thompson with the torn Achilles. Sacramento really has been quiet. I think they're waiting on the Bogdan thing to see what their next move is. And then also in that division is Phoenix. Their big move was Chris Paul. We talked about that earlier last week. The Rockets have been quiet despite all the noise about Harden and Westbrook. The Mavericks have been surprisingly quiet. I think they missed opportunities to go out and trade for somebody. But Tim Hardaway opted in. Maybe they used that contract and a couple other pieces to go out and get an unexpected unhappy player. The Spurs brought back some of their guys. So they've been relatively quiet. The Pelicans pull off the Steven Adams thing. I think they've had a tremendous offseason. Grizzlies have been quiet, just bringing back some of their own guys. They're happy with what they got. Minnesota obviously has a nice draft, and they get Ed Davis in that trade to be a bench guy for them. The Blazers pull off the trades for Robert Covington and Enes Kanter. Enes Kanter is just going to be a backup for them because obviously Jokic is back. So Portland made themselves a deeper team. You have the Nuggets who lose Torrey Craig, who's been a spot starter for them. The Jazz pull off the Donovan Mitchell extension and really haven't done much else. And Oklahoma City's just been the land of misfit toys and bad contracts. They pull off the bad Al Horford contract and get a first-round pick as they send Danny Green to the Sixers. And obviously Green came from the Lakers in the Schroeder deal. So Oklahoma City is just stockpiling young assets and building around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And that's what they should be doing, because I thought last year was very fluky for them, and now they're looked upon as the worst team in the Western Conference. The Western Conference as a whole is better, and Oklahoma City got worse. So I think it's obvious who the worst team in the Western Conference is. All right, so that's enough NBA free agency talk. Now I'm going to talk about my plans for the podcast this week. So it's obviously the week of Thanksgiving. No show Thursday. We'll just get that out of the way. So tomorrow's show is going to be Monday Night Football recap. I'm going to do my Major League Baseball off-season predictions on the show tomorrow. That's something that I have yet to get to because there's a lot of college football going on. College basketball begins Wednesday, so I'm going to do a special college basketball season preview and predictions podcast tomorrow morning, and that's going to drop as well. So that's 2 shows for tomorrow, the college basketball season preview and predictions podcast and the regular podcast, which is going to be Monday Night Football recap, Dancing with the Stars recap, baseball off-season predictions, and we'll talk about the KBO series as well. Wednesday's podcast, we are going to preview and predict the college basketball slate for Wednesday and Thanksgiving as well. And we will preview and predict college football and NFL games for Thanksgiving, respectively, and The Masked Singer. We'll preview that as well, because The Masked Singer this week is on Thursday, on Thanksgiving night, at 8 o'clock on Fox, rather than its normal time on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock on Fox. So we'll preview Masked Singer on Wednesday's show, although the episode isn't going to be on TV until Thursday. As I mentioned at the top of the segment, no podcast Thursday, it's Thanksgiving. Last year, I did not do a podcast on Black Friday. This year, I will. Because last year, I had a super long podcast on Thanksgiving Eve. But now, Black Friday's podcast is probably going to be the longer podcast. We'll recap the first 2 days of college basketball and the Thanksgiving games for college football and the NFL, respectively. And then we'll pick the rest of the weekend slate in the college football, NFL, respectively, and college basketball, too. We'll preview and predict all the, or not all of them, but we'll go through college basketball picks as well for the weekend, as I'm going to do what I normally do with college sports and then the NBA and then college basketball last year is project the numbers and stuff, which is going to be hard because obviously it's a new season, a lot of unknowns and everything, but I'll try my best. And then no podcast Saturday, barring any emergency NBA trade or Major League Baseball move or whatever. And then Monday, we'll recap everything from the weekend, from NFL, college football, college basketball, and obviously talk about anything that happens over the weekend or throughout the week on any of these respective shows that I'm having. Now we'll do my best bet of the day, brought to you by FanDuel. I really hate this pick with a passion, but it's the only pick I can make, and that is under 48.5 in the Rams-Buccaneers game tonight. I have a 1-point edge on the under. If anything, I will probably parlay some alternate total and spread for the game tonight. So under 48.5 for best bet. I hate it. It's my least favorite best bet probably of this whole year. But it is what it is at this point. So that's it for the podcast. I'll be back tomorrow recapping all the games as I mentioned and Dancing with the Stars, and then we'll do baseball off-season predictions and a special college basketball season preview and predictions show as well coming free tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great day, everyone.